when doing multinational ERP implementations, how important are localizations such as US GAAP and Brazilian tax? And those are two, very specific regulatory localizations. But maybe I'll broaden it a little bit more, not only to talk about regulatory localization, which is, you don't have a whole lot of choices to make there. You either are either complying with the law or you're not. So it's a little bit more maybe easier to answer the question around regulations because you do have to localize from a regulatory perspective. But what about just localization in general? How do you navigate that balance between the organization that wants to centralize, standardize, integrate operations, become one company versus the other extreme, which is we've got different countries operating differently. They know their markets best. They've adapted their, the operations to the local markets, and let's just leave them alone and let them operate independently. I mean, those are two extremes. It's not an either or answer. Obviously, there's a whole continuum of where we might fall on that spectrum. But let's start with you, Dean. How do you navigate that whole decision around, do we standardize and integrate across the globe, or do we let each country operate independently?
Well, you need to have the localization factor there, or else the actual entity will not be able to run its day-to-day business. I think the key thing here is when we talk about standardization and process consistency, those are just as a high-level talking points, right? In order for, let's say, system implementers to get the deal done, and they think everything's going to be nice and rosy at the end of the day when we turn the system on, but it never really happens like that. We need to keep in mind of that localization. And you were mentioning before about the as-is or the current state. That's extremely, extremely important to note that. And we can't just think about what should be the utopical way of doing business, because you have to look at that localized requirements. The key thing here is to identify what are those key data points that needs to be part of the, let's say, the regional planning process, the reporting process, and then next level would be the global reporting or planning piece. So you need to build your processes in order for companies to run their everyday business based on local regulations, but it's identifying those data points in your design so all the information can be rolled up or rolled down to the different entities.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. How about you, Aaron? What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think tying in with what Dean said, one of the key things that I've seen is really it's deciding what you actually want from the project, right? At the very start in the strategic alignment workshops up front, what are the goals? Are you trying to get standardized reporting by country, by department, by whatever? And then really understanding as best you can the balance between pain and process, right? I mean, if you go down and fix the process for a multinational organization outside of purely legal requirements in each one, you will go through a lot of pain getting that system accepted in all of your different areas. Now, if you have a completely custom solution, as Dean kind of indicated, you're not going to meet the goals of the project, right? So it's finding the balance between purely custom and very rigid in the implementation and the processes that are put down, finding the right balance there. And what that really is why are you doing this project, right? I mean, what are the goals of this project and what am I trying to see? If it's process optimization across supply chain, for example, does that vary? Do you have separate KPIs in your different countries versus at the head office? And how does that translate into the actual system that you're going to deploy for the end users? And really, I think, having done a number of these, a lot of it comes down to the individual organizations, right? They have to decide what do I want out of this project? How much pain am I going to go through and bear in order to get the end results? Or how much am I focusing on let's do what's right for each individual department or each individual country, and then we'll deal with a lot of the consolidation of data and cleansing and things at a higher level and be able to pull that out. And so really it's an individual balance, I think, between between the companies in terms of the strategic direction and then the local impacts, and where in the balance that line gets drawn between those two things.